Welcome to ReVlog. This week we come to the last in our series, this series of our own. I've really been thrilled with the way this has played out. I feel like this has been good for us. I've heard many church folks say we should write more of our own of these, and so Megan had a big part of that. I was really grateful. Before we get into Matthew 25 here, Aaron, how'd you feel about this series?
Great. Similarly, I mean, this one has been percolating for a long time, and on the other side, you said you've heard from people that say that we should do more of these. There's a real groundswell for this one. Like people longed for it, and I also think it was interesting how many challenges we had. I mean, the weather, your health, you were you never have known it, but I know one of those Sundays you were kind of under, and we've persevered through it. It's these lessons that we've needed to hear, and I think we've managed them well. And there's some great hymns on stewardship and generosity that I have been able to unpack, and it's so I've enjoyed that. So
Megan, how have you felt about this series?
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, this is I love when we can do these kind of topical things because it helps us discuss things that we might not normally get to, and especially with finances, it's not something we've talked a lot about, but there's been so many good discussions and questions that have come out of this. And so, and people, our folks want to hear about this. We want to talk about it. And so it's been a good time.
Yeah, I've been pleased. Really grateful for this. Yeah. So today we come to Matthew 25, 14 through 30. We want to get your investment advice. So Aaron, we want a hot stock tip from you. And Megan, if you could point us in the direction of maybe an out-of-the-way stock tip that people haven't heard about.
Very good.
We want to make sure and double our money today.
Yeah.
And so if you've got somewhere we can double our money, we'll go for it. So, I mean, today... It is a financial text, just like we were talking about before we came on. There's a lot in this parable here, and I think there's a number of things that we can take away from it. But I want to hear y'all's heart. And so, Megan, help us jump into this. As you read this anew, what were some of the things that stood out to you?
Yeah, this is a really thorough parable. It really fleshes out, the kind of the positive example and the negative example.
Seem longer. It has more details than normal.
We don't always get, we are often left to fill in the blanks, and this really fleshes the whole story out. But really,
oddly, Aaron still has more questions. We have more detail, and he's got more questions. We'll get to those.
Those are always before we start filming. You don't hear any of those.
But it's a really, at first glance, it's an odd story. And like I said, this was kind of a hard one to figure out. Okay, what angle do we take this from? But really, what it's saying, when you zoom out at what it's really saying is, what do you do with what you've been given? Right. And these two examples of the two faithful servants that invest the money that immediately are productive with what they've been given, versus the lazy servant who
and it uses that word here. Lazy. And I think that's a key in this, right?
Yeah, and that's part of the negative example in the lazy servant is that he attacks the character of the master. And there's this interesting relationship that this lazy servant has with the master. And obviously, this is all meant to portray how we can respond to the Lord. Sometimes it's with a misuse of what he's given us and with a misunderstanding of who he is. Right. But when we have a proper understanding of who he is and what he's entrusted to us, then we'll have this motivation to be productive with what he's given us. And we talk all the time that Christians we're in a posture of waiting. We're waiting for Jesus to come back. We're waiting, but we're not just sitting on our hands saying, well, I'm going to heaven, and we're not just waiting. We've been given these things to be productive with our time, our treasure, our talents. And so this helps us see that for what it is.
Well said.
Yeah.
Aaron, what grabbed your attention in this text?
Two different angles. Mm-hmm. So first I want to tell you about my grandparents.
Okay.
All my grandparents were born in 1921.
Oh, wow.
Okay? All four?
All four.
Born
all
1921.
1921. And so 1929 comes along.
Approaching Great Depression.
They're 8 years old, and then they're in the Midwest, and so you've also got the Dust Bowl and kind of how the 30s, were. So by the time we climb out of it, their formative years are marked by lack.
Right.
And one set of grandparents became so thrifty it was comical. And you might have had grandparents like this or heard stories. We reused paper towels, or that we reused wrapping paper. And I mean, it's a family joke now, but I mean, it was a very serious thing. And investing was, just there was not a penny that was not accounted for. The other side did something else that came out of that, and that was not trusting anything institutional. And so when my grandmother died, you would go through the house and under mattresses and in bookshelves, and you had no idea, because it was born out of a fear, and that because it could happen again, and you have no idea. And the country was rolling along, and all of a sudden the rug was torn out, and so you have two very different approaches to how things went, and both frugal, but one. So it's interesting to me, because when I look at this bad servant, it's as if that relationship is born out of fear and a lack of trust that if it's going to be taken away and I'm not going to have, and so that's I'm not casting aspersions on my grandparents at all, but as I'm reading this, those examples came up. But the other thing the other angle that I thought of as I reread it this morning in preparation for this is, the last 2 weeks of our study have been money. 2 weeks ago, you talked to us about money. And this last week, we talked about all of creation. And when you think of, in the totality of what we have studied, that we have been given so much. This isn't just a financial lesson anymore. And I've always struggled with this parable. I've always just not known, like, if you don't invest, then you're not a good. I
know the banks get a shout out in here. Yeah, you should have put it in a bank.
And so and particularly in light of, again, my grandparents and what I saw as I was growing up. But I think, particularly in this study, I've looked at this parable in a different way, in that he has given me a gift of leadership, a gift of speaking, a gift of teaching. And so how am I stewarding that? Am I leaning into it? Or am I hiding it under a bushel? And so not just financial, definitely financial, because we can see that, we can track that. But there are so many other ways. How am I caring for the world? How am I caring for my children and my family? And all of those things that God can look at and say, I gave you this. So well done.
What return?
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah, well said. Yeah. Megan, what question do you have from the text?
Yeah, I think, like Aaron said, we're using this parable to look through the last 5 weeks with, and if we put this on all of the topics that we've discussed, I know for me, like I've said before, the most convicting week with this was the time, our stewardship of time. And so if I put this parable over the subject of time,
amen.
That's where I need to grow. And so how am I using my time productively, and with full knowledge of the character of God and what he's asked of me, and we could put that over any of these topics that we've covered. So for me, how can I be the best steward of these things that God has given me?
Aaron, what question for you?
Very similar. I mean, just looking back, using these 6 weeks as a template, and just kind of putting the gift tote board up there in all of the things that we've been given, and how am I generous here? Am I being generous with my time, or am I stewarding well these spiritual giftings or my finances, and just reconciling them up against what God's called me to do, and right now, would God say, well done. You have done that well. Yeah. Let me, or will he say more likely, I gave you this and you just squandered it. Yeah. And so we need to take that kind of veil back and ask ourselves those, because he's not done with us. And so it's, that judgment hasn't been passed on us yet. And so this is a good opportunity to take stock and go, okay, Lord,
Yeah.
If you were to tell me this now, what would you say, and how can I get forward where you want me to be?
If you've buried that talent, you still got time to dig it up.
That's right.
And make something, make something of it, right? We'd love to hear your thoughts on the parable of the talents as well, if you'd comment below.